All right, folks, I think we're live. How's it going? This is Bill Meeks. Hopefully this is coming to you live in Technicolor. If not, we have a backup recording. I just wanted to let you know that this is a live stream, and basically there will be flubs, there will be dubs, but we're going to put together a nice edited package sometime in the near future with this episode. So go ahead and subscribe over on the Where I'm From podcast YouTube channel if you want to check that out. Otherwise, we have a lot to talk about with Dave today, and we've been delayed by about a day because of my technical issues. So why don't we go ahead and get started? If I hit the button, it'll go. Nope. See, technical issues. This is what we live for. 1 second. And here we go. Welcome to Where I'm From, the podcast that proves that no matter how far you go, you'll always keep a little piece of home with you. I'm Bill Meeks. This week, actor and comedian Dave Theune joins me to talk about where he's from, Cedar Grove, Wisconsin. But he's also kind of from Milwaukee. Point is, we're talking the Badger State. You might know Dave Theune as, well, that guy.
The RX-5 got 5 spokes on Road Pro, and it's half the price. Okay.
Dave's been a teacher on I Am Not Okay With This, a patsy on Good Girls, and about a million other things. But before he slapped Hollywood across the face with his awesome mustache, Dave started his comedy journey at Comedy Sports in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We'll discuss that for sure. But we're going to start in Cedar Grove. Cedar Grove is a village in Sheboygan County, Wisconsin, so it's no wonder Dave has a well-developed funny bone. It was a town built around a post office. These days, it's best known as the site of the annual Holland Festival, celebrating the heritage of the founding families with costumes, food, clompin' dancing, whatever that is, and a parade that goes right down Main Street. Today, I'm talking to Dave about Cedar Grove, Milwaukee, how he went from Comedy Sports in the middle of the country to UCB in Hollywood, and maybe we'll even fit in a little improv. Here's Dave. And I'd like to welcome to Where I'm From Dave Theune. How you doing today, Dave?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Excellent, excellent. Now, I haven't, minus yesterday where we had a technical issue, I haven't talked to you since we were in an improv class together at Groundlings, which I had to bow out of because there was COVID and a car wreck and all that stuff. But how was the rest of the class?
The rest of the class, after you left, we really took off. We really started to thrive. It felt like there was a cloud lifted, and we just started to gel and come together. So you were missed. You were missed, Bill. Indeed. The class was fun. It was good.
And you guys hang out all the time now and everything, too, like outside of class.
Hang out all the time. Yeah, and we have your email, so we know we could connect, but we choose not to.
You choose not to, absolutely. You know, it's funny you say that because a little story about where I'm from. I was on the YMCA basketball team, youth basketball team. We lost every game for 8 or 9 games. And I was like, you know what, screw this. I'm out of here. I dropped out of the team. They went on to win the regional championship. It's like they had 4 games left. They won all 4 of them and they made it to the championship. So par for the course, par for the course.
Hey, you don't like to be with losers, man. We know this thing about Bill. He doesn't want to be associated with losers, so he gets out while the getting's good. And then whatever happens after that, that's not on him.
And it's just a coincidence that every time I leave, they stop being losers and start being winners. It's weird.
Purely coincidence. We're not that important to think that the world is revolving around us.
Nice. Well, Dave, we're going to talk today about Cedar Grove, and we're going to talk a little bit about Milwaukee too. So I figured I'd split it up into 2 sections here. We'll start with Cedar Grove because that's where you started, right? So, was Cedar Grove a supportive environment for young artists such as yourself?
Um, yes. I mean, for me, yes. I mean, I don't know if that's for everybody, just like any town, any city, anywhere. But for me, it was. I got to do. Um, I got to do. I guess I would say like it's supportive. An artist, yes, but also I didn't know what I was doing. No one knew what they were doing at that age. I mean, I certainly wasn't thinking I'd be moving out to Los Angeles or anything at that time. That wasn't a possibility. But
Yeah.
because I was in an environment that was supportive, that was safe, that was stable, I could kind of try different things out, do kind of things that I wanted to, which included being in plays in high school, being kind of goofy in general, and and dabbling in a lot of different things to find out what I actually like and didn't like.
I was a theater kid too. What plays were you in high school?
Um, I well I guess, and I'm always like the phrase theater kid. I was in plays, but my school was like 200 students total. It was really small, and my town was like 12 to 1,500 people, and we combined with another town called Belgium, and their kids came to Cedar Grove as well. Uh, but theater, I was in plays in high school, but anyone could be in the play. If you wanted to be in the play, you could be in the play. There were just we only had one a year. There was no like theater department. It was just a one play a year, and I was in a play in like seventh grade, eighth grade, and then all through high school. But that was just one a year. And again, truly, anyone could be a part of it. So I don't know if I was a theater kid, but it's one of the many things I did because I also did sports. If anything, I would consider myself a sports kid more than anything, but theater was definitely part of it. We did. I'm sorry, that was a long way to say. We did A Christmas Carol.
Ooh, who'd you play in A Christmas Carol? Because I was in two versions, I was in 1.5 versions of it.
Okay, and you played who?
I was in the kids version. I was Bob Cratchit. In the musical version, I was just a villager.
All right, I like that. We did not do a musical version, and that was my freshman year. And I was the ghost of Christmas. Who's the bigger, jollier ghost? Is that Ghost of Christmas Past?
I think that's the Ghost of Christmas Present. Or no, maybe it is. No, it is Past. Like the big jolly guy who's eating all the fruit and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was me if I remember correctly. I was taller, so I think that probably helped. But I also think he got to be maybe a little bit funnier, and I was maybe considering myself as funny. I don't know if anyone else did, but I did. And then I don't remember all the plays that we did. We did Bye Bye Birdie. And Bye Bye Birdie, it was classic, except our piano player, because we were a small town, so we didn't have like a whole band or anything, dropped out not that long before we started. And so we tried to use like a soundtrack, like a tape or CD to sing along with, but that didn't really work well. So we did it a cappella, Bye Bye Birdie a cappella. It was an experience.
That worked better than the tape somehow.
I wouldn't say that, but I was Conrad Birdie in Bye Bye Birdie, and I'm not a good singer.
The lead, right? The lead of Bye Bye Birdie.
Yeah, or one of the co-leads. Like it's him, it's the gal, and then the gal that she falls in love. The guy that she falls in love with, which is what, my manager or something. I don't remember. I don't exactly remember the musical that well. And I did two others, which I don't remember. I think one was like we did like a series of short ones. Bachelor and the Bobby Soxers. Is that a musical or is that a play? Bachelor and the Bobby Soxers.
I know there's a family of musicals that are all like, set in the 50s or like set in like a bingo hall. It's like this class of musicals that's like every community theater does to bring out the elderly folks.
Yeah. We were definitely in that camp. So those are the ones I did, and I liked it. I like being on stage. I like performing. I like being funny. So that stuff definitely spoke to me for sure.
Were the theater kids at your high school? In my high school, they were kind of elevated, almost as elevated as like, say, the jocks or something. Were the theater kids in your school respected, or was it, let's go pick on the theater kids?
It was not the same thing, but I don't know if anyone can. Maybe I can't speak to the other students. I just don't remember it ever feeling like anyone's like, I'm a theater kid. Like that was like a subgroup. It was just such a we only did one a year, and then there was no other like class or get-togethers. It was just like we'd get together and different people would try out. Maybe sometimes you'd have the same crew. Like I was in it every year, but other people were not in it every year, and it just felt like a different thing. So were they the upper echelon? Probably not. But a lot of us were also in sports and in other groups, so it also just felt like not like there was no differentiation between the groups in certain ways. But I would say they were not. Maybe we weren't cream of the crop, but we were also dabbling in other things.
Yeah, my high school was very much like that too, where, we had the theater kids, but the theater kids were also the band kids, were also the football kids.
Yeah.
Like one of the bigger actors, Justin in my high school, he was also the school mascot that would run out at football games in the Patriot costume.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. See, that's the type of stuff. Like we were too small. We didn't have a mascot. I mean, we were the Rockets, but we didn't have like anyone dressing up as a Rocket.
How big was your class size?
60 kids.
60. Oh, wow. Pretty small.
In my graduating class. Yeah. I could probably at least name the first name of everyone in my high school, at least. And then like everyone was a lot of students were in band that were in sports. Our band was like a big, pretty normal thing. And again, I could be wrong. Maybe there's other students that are like, it sucked. And I did feel like a theater kid, and I was on the outer edges, and I'm sure that was the case. But for me, who was kind of had my hand in a lot of different things, it all felt pretty normal.
Yeah.
So,
So when I contacted you about being on the show, I was like, do you have anything about Cedar Grove you would be interesting to talk about or you'd like to talk about? And you mentioned the annual Holland Fest. Now go ahead and tell us about Holland Fest, and were you ever involved? Did you have any fond memories of it?
All the above. Absolutely. Holland Fest is it takes place every summer in July, I believe. And Cedar Grove is a Dutch town. Maybe not so much now as it used to be, but we have Dutch heritage. Theune is a Dutch name, as far as I know. And we every summer, or like I said, we have a big windmill in our town. It doesn't serve any purpose other than decorative, on Main Street, and we have two other smaller windmills around town, very small, or much smaller. And Holland Fest is a 2-day festival. Takes place on Friday and Saturday. Friday afternoon, evening, Saturday all day and night. And it is, at the time when I was growing up, the largest non-alcoholic festival in Wisconsin, I believe. I don't know if people like that claim to fame or not, depending on who you ask.
Considering it's non-alcoholic, it's surprising that it's pretty popular.
Right,
very. Most people equate alcohol with festival,
Yeah. When I was a kid, and I don't know, again, maybe it's slightly different now, but certainly when I was a kid, like people would come from different parts of the state to come to this. And I think part of the allure and the appeal was, well, one, there was just less to do because there's no internet and the world was smaller then. But I think part of the appeal was that it was like a family affair and you could take your kids there, and it was like, it wasn't going to get, dive into mayhem. We would do, here's the things about Holland Fest. One is that we would, on Saturday morning, we'd have a parade like a lot of festivals do. But what we would do is we would scrub the streets. And what that means is on Main Street, where the parade is going to come down, it's also going to go down other streets, but it goes down Main Street as well. People, if they choose, could dress up in traditional Dutch garb, which I did, and so did my family. Wooden shoes, and if you could think of like what the little Dutch boy on the paint cans kind of looks like, that's kind of what we were dressed like. And gals would dress in traditional dresses. We would scrub the streets. We would take pails of water, obviously, and out of a big wooden barrels and whatnot. And the guys would have yokes on like an oxen and have 2 barrels of water, 2 pails of water, and we would dump it on the street. And then the women, also guys, would scrub it with these big wooden brooms. And then the parade would begin. We'd have a guy named the Burgermeister, which is like a leader of some sort. He's declaring that the streets are clean and the festival is open. And we would.
Who is more powerful, the Burgermeister or the Burger King?
Oh, that's a tale as old as time. It's a question that with a chicken or the egg, right? My goodness, I gotta give it to the Burgermeister, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So then we would the other thing that would happen is a parade would come. People from around different parts of the state they come in different bands, high school bands. People would come in church floats. We had 4 churches in our town, 1 bar, 4 churches, and
Wow.
each church would generally have a float of some kind, and also. We would do klumpen dancing. Klumpen dancing is traditional Dutch dancing, and I would have to take part in that. So did my sisters. My mom and my aunt would play accordion. They'd get on the back of a truck, and they would drive slowly and play the accordion, and we would dance to that down the street. And then the festival after that would begin, and it would have to take place in what we called the Old Park. We had a new park and an old park. And Old Park, I think, is also referred to as Memorial Park, and the new park is Independence Park. We called it Old and New. And then it would be Friday night and Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, lots of food, traditional Dutch food, oliebolens, which is like a round donut, and Worcesterburgies, which is kind of like what we might refer to as a pig in the blanket. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff here. It was an epic thing. I look forward to it every year. I loved it. I loved it intensely. We also had one play that would take place every year, or a musical that would take place during that time. So at night, you could go see this musical, and I would go see the musical or the play because it was like the thing to do in our town. And I found it very entertaining. I loved it.
Who put the play on? Did you guys have like a community theater in town, or?
I don't know if we. It's similar to the high school thing where it's just like one play. Would I call it a community theater? I guess it took place in the community. The community members took part in it, but it didn't feel like a year-round thing the way you think of like, the Oak Park community players. Like I don't think we didn't have like an organization like that to my knowledge.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that, it was alcohol free. I did have a question here. Were there any like memorable, like big controversy events things, but I'm sure the lack of alcohol probably cuts down on that.
Cut it way down. Not to my knowledge. There wasn't any. When I was young, the high schoolers, there would be like one on Saturday night, I think, to kind of keep kids out of trouble at the high school. If I remember correctly, there would be like a DJ or a band, and like the kids could go there. I was too young for that, and I think it died out by the time I got into high school, if I remember correctly. But maybe I'm wrong on that. But no, not to my knowledge. It was a pretty scandal-free event, to my knowledge. Yeah.
Well, all the better
Very
for
boring.
Cedar
Very
Grove.
boring.
Then. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of the coin, you mentioned when you posted about this on Instagram when we were supposed to record yesterday that you were gonna unbury all the bodies, all the names were coming out. I'm giving you this platform.
I'm doing a good job, right?
Absolutely. I'm giving you this space here to call out anyone you'd like to from Cedar Grove.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Here's the thing about like me growing up in plays. I'll call these people out. So me in these plays growing up and stuff like that. I think I have a funny family. I'm sure we all think we have funny families. I do think I have a funny family, and I'll call out my cousin Nate, who now lives out here in California, and I think he's so funny, and I used to look up to him. I still look up to him, but I definitely looked up to him when I was a kid. He was if an age gap, let's say if he's a senior in high school, I was in, I'm going to say 6th grade. That's about the age gap.
Gotcha. So like 6 or 7 years, something like that.
Yeah, maybe 7. Maybe he might be set. Maybe I was in 7th. Yeah, it might be like 5 to 6 years. Anyways, I would see him in plays. He would be in plays, and he would do different things at school. And I would get to see him, and I thought he was so funny, and I still think he's so funny. And he was definitely like inspirational to me to like get into performing because I wanted to do that, and I really liked that. And so he was definitely someone that I thought was really, really great, and gave me a little bit of a path to follow.
How has he reacted to your success and your continued success out here in Hollywood?
Super supportive. We talk on the phone. I don't see him as often as I should or as I want to, and vice versa. But I gotta make a stronger effort. But we get along really well. We just talked this week for a while, and this past week, and he's super supportive. He pays attention to things that I'm doing, and he likes it, and I always think, I'm like, I wish you would do more of this stuff. But he's got a good life, and he's doing great.
Yeah, a lot of the people I did theater with, it was either they went all in on theater or they went all in on the other side of it, getting like, I don't know, a corporate gig or like a teacher gig or something like that.
They went all in on consistency, stability, and 401k. Is that what they went in on?
Yeah. But screw that, man. Who needs
Crazy.
that?
Crazy.
But speaking of teachers, though, I try to ask this to everyone because it usually yields interesting answers. Did you have any teachers in Cedar Grove that had a profound impact on you and sort of the path you took?
Sure. I think probably a bunch of them. I thought my English teachers, Mr. Smithers and Mr. Abick were both like creative people. Mr. Smithers would be in the play. He was also a neighbor. Mr. Abick was could be a bit abrasive, but he took to me, and I thought he was like overall funny, if not a little bit questionable at times. But I did think he was funny, and he would let me kind of do my thing. And then most importantly, truly all my teachers were really, really great. Mr. and Mrs. Pilzel in third grade, and then again in sixth grade, they were a husband-wife teacher combo. And they would let me spread my wings a little bit and be funny, even again, how funny are you in third or sixth grade? I'm probably not that funny, but they would tolerate me and let me try different things. And then my I guess you want to say social studies teacher, Mr. Wood, I think he's so funny, and he let me be funny, and I thought he was really funny, and we would joke, and he would again tolerate me. I had a lot of teachers that tolerated, and that was a big deal to me, is that they just like would put up with me for a little bit as I tried to stumble my way through what I thought was funny.
Tolerate, accept you for who you are, tomato. But that's like, that's definitely so important to have an encouraging teacher. Like I know I do a bit of writing myself, and my high school teacher, my freshman year English teacher, Miss Wager, really kind of pushed me in that direction. And, any minor success I've had, I completely owe to her, because my family was not into the whole artsy fartsy writing sort of stuff unless it was related to, God and the Bible and all that. So it's so important to have those figures in your life that kind of allow you to experiment and find out who you are.
Yeah, for sure. And I because I grew up in a small town, and because my family had been kind of established there and been there for kind of generations, they'd been there for generations. I think there was like we know who this kid is. And again, you knew who every kid was, but they certainly knew who probably I was, because I had older sisters that kind of paved the way for me as well. And my mom and dad are in the community. So I think there was because of that, I had some leeway that maybe other kids didn't have, that weren't known. And I could look at that. I didn't notice it then, but certainly now I can go, oh man, I really had a little bit of a wide berth in which to do things. And maybe I was funny, maybe I wasn't, but there was let's give him some room, and they let me do that. And it was huge for me.
Absolutely. And I will definitely say, as someone who's taken an improv class with you, you're kind of funny. You're all right.
I have my days. I have my days here and there.
No, honestly, Dave, I've done a lot of improv classes now. Some of the scenes I did with you were some of my favorites I've done in any class. So.
Whoa, that's so great. Thank you for saying that. I like that class a lot, and I've done a lot. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it, but I like that class. It's for those of you who are wondering, is the intro class at Groundlings, or the Improv's 101 or basic or whatever you want to call it. It's the intro class to their core track at the Groundlings. And we were just in it recently, just a few months ago. And I've been doing improv for a while, but I wanted to branch out and try something different. So Bill and I were in the same class, and I really enjoyed that class, and people in that class really made me laugh. Not that I didn't think they would, but I haven't been in a class I haven't been in a beginning improv class in a while.
Yeah.
So there's certain expectations that were far exceeded in that class with the amount of funny people in there. I truly enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was a fun class for me too, because immediately prior to the pandemic, I spent about 2.5 years doing improv in Orlando, where we lived before. And then the pandemic happened, and all the opportunities I had there kind of went away. We decided to move out here. And then it was just such a relief and a release to come to that classroom and be, in a room playing with people again.
Absolutely.
Just a ton of fun.
What were you doing? Were you doing SAC in Orlando?
Yeah, SAC, and there was a short-lived long-form theater called Ad Lib that I did stuff at too. So
Okay, cool. Yeah. I like that. I know some friends. I got some friends from SAC, and they're super funny people.
Anyone I might know?
Lauren Pritchard. You know Lauren Pritchard? You know Natasha Arnold?
I know Lauren. I don't know Natasha.
Okay.
I know Rob Ward. I know Emily Fontana.
There we go.
Yeah.
Matt Tremmel is I think did SAC.
Yeah.
He's another person.
I don't know if he was around when I was, but okay. So we're getting into the weeds here. So
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So back to Cedar Grove. What are some
love it.
What are some can't miss attractions you'd recommend to anyone visiting Cedar Grove?
Oh boy. As soon as you realize you're in town, you're headed out of town. It's very small, very small. I'm gonna say there's not a lot. I'm gonna say there is a Holland Festival. That's Holland Festival. That's the big one. And then boy, I guess go to one of the 4 churches. You could go
or
to
the one bar.
Or the one bar, Sportsman's Bar, which I've been to many, many, many times. And then I would say if you head out of town, you can go to Country Grove Restaurant, which I think is what it's still called. It's a limited amount of stuff to do there. Truly. Yeah, it's not like, you know how like in Gilmore Girls, I always refer to Gilmore Girls. Stars Hollow is where they live. And it's this quaint small town, and there's just like gorgeous little main streets. Got all these shops and stuff like that. To me, that is not a small town. That's like a small city, a big town, small city.
Well, they have a town square.
They have like a town square. There's a ton of people there. Cedar Grove is not like that. People picture that. I think they're like, when I describe it, they're like, oh, I'm picturing quaint little shops and little like candle stores. And it's like, no, that's not what this is. It's very small. It's a farm town. It's surrounded by farms. It's a small town. It's a great town. I love it. But it's really small. That's just what it is. So
Yeah.
I'd say it's limited in the things that you're going to want to do. You probably want to head over to a big city, which is Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Sheboygan, I love it.
Made famous by the mention in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And maybe head over there, down to Milwaukee. But Cedar Grove is great. I love it.
Yeah, I think you didn't get to hear the intro I edited for you, but I think I mentioned Sheboygan just because it's such a funny name. Like, you can't go wrong saying Sheboygan.
Funny name. It's the best.
Okay, so we're gonna get to Milwaukee.
Let me back up real quick. We're gonna get to Milwaukee,
ahead.
but I'm gonna mention these 2 things. We have 2 Dutch museums. One is called Het Museum, which is I think Dutch for so Het Museum, and then we have the Tarundi House, which my mom has helped with, and it's a house that is styled in early Cedar Grove, like what it was like if you were living in Cedar Grove back when it started. What was the house looking like? And it's an entire house looked like that. We open it a few times a year. Also on Holland Fest is one of those times. So those are 2 things to check out. I'd be remiss in my and people would tell me that I was wrong if I hadn't mentioned that. Okay, we can move on to Milwaukee.
We don't. I'll just say, is it sort of like a fabricated version of what a house would look like back then, or is it something where like they just were like, okay, we're going to preserve this?
It's a super old house. It's a super old house, and then they backdated it, the interior, to fit more of that mold. But it's an old house, and you go in there, and you're like, they didn't have to do a lot. They just had to bring in old furniture from the time. But yeah, I think it's got to be a house from the early 1900s.
Very nice. Okay. Well, you said let's get to Milwaukee. We're gonna go to Milwaukee, but via Cedar Grove. I was wondering what your relationship to Milwaukee was growing up in Cedar Grove, because they're not terribly far apart. What is it, like 60 miles or something?
Yeah, not far at all, but feels like a world away when you're a kid. You can't really judge distances and whatnot. So Milwaukee, we'd go to sometimes we'd go to a Brewer game. We'd make that trek, but that was not often, but we did. And then that would be more on the south end of Milwaukee. We were north of Milwaukee, so it was a bit of a trek to go through the city. And then every year we would go to the big thing for the Theune family that we loved, or at least I loved, and my sisters loved, would be to go to Northridge Mall, which is on the north side of Milwaukee, but I couldn't tell that. As far as I knew, we were deep in Milwaukee. And we would go to the Northridge Mall, which is now defunct, and we'd do our annual Christmas shopping, which would take place on the day after Thanksgiving, which is the worst time to go shopping, but we loved
Absolutely.
it. And absolutely, so we'd go to the Northridge Mall, and that was the big excursion into Milwaukee generally, unless we were going to there or the Brewer game or my favorite place in the entire world, which is the Milwaukee Public Museum, and I love it, and I go back there every time I go back to Milwaukee. I go through it, and it's my favorite place. If no one's ever gone to the Milwaukee Public Museum, you got to go. It's not going to be there that long because they're going to relocate it because it's this big hulking building that's no longer efficient and is just too big for the museum and too big for the city. But it is. I've been to a lot of museums. It's one of the best museums. I get that I'm biased, but it's one of the best museums you could possibly go to. It has more. What do you call it when there's like what do you call it when it's like, when you're a kid and there's like a shoebox, you made it like a shoebox, and you have like a little scene in a shoebox.
Oh,
what do you call that?
Like a diorama?
Diorama. So
Yeah.
it's got like more dioramas than any museum I've ever been to. Way more, and more expansive, and some big ones that are like super impressive to me. And including the streets of Old Milwaukee and European Village. We have 3 floors. It's awesome. It's not going to be there forever. It's going to be closing in the next few years because they're going to relocate. So if you ever get there, it's worth its weight in gold. It's the best place in the world. I love it. Anyways,
Absolutely.
that's what we would go to. That's what we would go
to. You moved from Cedar Grove to Milwaukee to go to college, right?
I went to, after high school, I scrambled because I didn't apply quickly enough to colleges, and I was dragging my feet because I was lazy. I spent my first 2 years at Oshkosh, UW Oshkosh, which is north and a little bit west of Cedar Grove. And
Is that related to
years.
Oshkosh Bagosh, the clothing line?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. We all wore overalls all the time, and we were all children. And I spent 2 years there. Loved it. My grades were awful. But I
maybe you loved it a little too
much.
much.
Too much. Definitely did not go to class enough. And then I transferred to Milwaukee. I wanted a bigger experience. I wanted a bigger city. I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now. I gravitate towards cities. I love cities. I like small places too. But I think maybe because I was in Cedar Grove and I wanted to do something different, I wanted something bigger. So after 2 years, I went to UW Milwaukee, and I loved it.
So when you made it to Milwaukee, did it really feel like a transition to like the big city? Because I mean, Milwaukee compared to something like Los Angeles, it's not all that big, but did it feel
gigantic.
Gigantic?
It felt gigantic to me. It was huge. I mean, Oshkosh felt huge to me. Oshkosh was gigantic to me. It's the first time, I just told this to someone recently. I've told this many times. My friend who was in the dorm room next to me, Josh, he's like, one night we were hanging out. He's like, hey, do you want to get a pie? One, I didn't know what a pie meant. I just thought he meant literally like a pie. I was like, what? I know now it's pizza. And I was like, okay. And it was the first time I'd ever gotten delivery in my life. And I thought, I was like, holy cow, I'm in the city. We're getting delivery pizza.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. And then going to Milwaukee, absolutely felt huge. And I explored such a tiny part of the city when I was in school there. I lived there afterward too, and then got to see way more of it. But it was gigantic to me. Now I recognize it as a mid-sized city that's way more manageable. I love Milwaukee. But at the time, it felt enormous.
Enormous, intimidating, all that kind of stuff. Like I remember,
sure.
I remember the first time I went to a bigger city than the one I grew up in was when I was 18. I moved out here to Los Angeles for about 6 months, from Wheeling, West Virginia.
Okay.
So way far out there, and it was definitely.
It's huge.
Okay.
You moved to like the biggest place. You moved to the most sprawling, gigantic city in the U.S.
Yeah, I went from 0 to 100 at 18 years old. I was like, screw this town. I'm getting out of here. I came back 6 months later, but yeah.
Did you cry? Did you cry in Los Angeles when you were out here at all? Were you like scared? Like I would have cried at many points. I would have cried. I've been like, this was too much.
I absolutely did because I moved out here to go to UCLA and work as a live-in nanny. And a few months into the live-in nanny gig, they were very against any sort of punishment for their kids. The little boy was beating up on the little girl, so I sent them both to their room so their parents could deal with it when they got home. Fired me. I had no place to live. I cried that day.
Whoa.
Had to go.
Holy cow.
Had to go crawling back to my family to buy me a plane ticket to get home and everything. It was nuts.
Yeah.
But
well, you're a big capital punishment proponent, if I'm not mistaken, right? You love capital punishment. Like
oh,
spanking.
Absolutely. Corporal punishment, not capital punishment.
Not capital punishment.
I love.
Yeah. Sorry,
Dave.
Punishment.
You're not going to believe this. You're the second person to make that mistake. For it to come up and to make that mistake, the first was Stephen Tobolowsky. So congratulations, you're in a very rarefied air.
That's so funny. That's so funny that he's the other one. I did an episode of I did the pilot of Dr. Ken. It was a sitcom that ran on, I think, ABC for a while. And Steven was, I don't think he was a regular, but I think he was in the pilot. He was a patient in the pilot as well.
Yeah.
And so I got to listen to him and talk to him for just a little bit. I can't remember no details, but I just remember being in awe, being like, Stephen Tobolowsky standing in front of me. He's telling stories about old stuff that he did. It wasn't Groundhog Day, but he was telling some stories, and I just remember being in awe of him. So I'm thrilled to be in that company.
Yeah, that man can talk. Like, I booked him for an hour. He said he had a heart out. He went for like an hour and 45 minutes, and he didn't want to stop. He had to stop because his grandson or granddaughter was there. So yeah. Tobolowsky can talk. Absolutely.
He can.
Nice. Okay, Dave. Well, we've come to our first game. So I hope you're ready for it. This is called What If It Happened Here? Now, Dave, you've been in a zillion TV shows and movies. So in this game, I'll give you a film or TV project you've been involved with and challenge you to tell me how it would be different if it took place in Cedar Grove. Make sense?
Let's hear it. Yep.
Okay, first up, Good Girls.
Good Girls. If it took place in Cedar Grove, when I grew up, there are far less places to rob. They have very few options. So they're going to burn through it really quickly. They have one street in which to rob from. That is Main Street, because that is where all the businesses were. And we'd all know them, and we'd all know their business, because word travels fast in a small town. They would be caught within a week, but the punishment, pretty light. They'd be pretty light. We'd probably forgive them. We'd always know what they did, and that would always be held over their head, but they'd probably be able to continue pretty easily in the town.
So suburban moms get a pass in Cedar Grove. Good to know. Good to know for any aspiring criminals out there. Go to Cedar Grove. Okay, The Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory. Let's see here. If that took place in Cedar Grove, they'd be commuting for their job because they're all like physicists or chemists or whatever they are.
Not astronomists, not astrologists.
Astronomists. Yeah. Either way, wouldn't fit in Cedar Grove. Neither one. They'd definitely be commuting, and their apartments would not look as cool. And quirky and whatnot. They'd be way more boxy and plain, and they'd have already gotten married. They've all gotten married way sooner, and they'd all have kids way before season 12.
Yeah, I love this idea, though. Like, it could be like, someone who had a proclivity for science and they never got out of Cedar Grove. So they're like, I don't know, like a bartender or something in town. And they're always like, man, like physics, like I can do physics. I can really do. No, you don't believe me. Yeah, exactly. Okay. The Connors.
The Connors, probably pretty accurate. Probably pretty close to what it was. They're a pretty normal family. Then they, I think, same. They're doing great, except they'd have been cheering for the Packers and not the Bears.
Okay, that was an easy one. All right, Santa Clarita Diet.
Santa Clarita Diet. Oh my gosh. Before I explain, I'm going to say this. I'm gonna say this about all of these shows that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If we wanted to go into, we don't have time. I could go into how nice the whole cast, all the cast, nice and minimal, professional, but always at least one person on the cast who is like really nice and really talkative. When you're a co-star or guest star on a show, you don't know the people as well. It's like any other thing in life where it's like you don't know the person, you don't talk to them as much. That's anywhere else in life. Same on TV. But there'd always be someone that was like nicer and like be warmer and whatever. And with Santa Clarita Diet, that's Drew Barrymore's in that show. She came up to me and my co-star, who was also with me, or guest star, whatever our title was at that point, and like introduced herself. It was like, "Hi, I'm Drew," and whatever you think she is, like however nice you think she is by her like her persona that we see on TV and movies, accurate. She was so nice. She was so sweet. She took the time. She talked with us for a while, was laughing, and was just like awesome. She was awesome. Yeah. They're all awesome. She was awesome. Santa Clarita Diet took place in Cedar Grove. I think we'd be happy because it's a meat eating town. We love beef. we love red meat. So there's probably something that would appeal to us there. I think it'd work well.
Nice. There's probably one or two people running around as nice as Drew Barrymore, I'm sure.
Absolutely. You kidding me? Got that Midwest nice thing going on for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, this is a little bit of a weird one, but I threw it in here because my son, London, is obsessed with this show. Adam Ruins Everything.
Adam Ruins Everything.
If it was locked into Cedar Grove.
Yeah, if it was locked into Cedar Grove, oh boy. I worry that we would be mad at all of the truths he's uncovering about the way he operates, because he's also a little bit left leaning, and he would have to skew toward the right a little bit more conservative, Adam, please. And we'd have to also PG it up, because that gets a little bit it gets a little lewd and crude on that show, and I've been in those episodes, so we'd have to clean it up. It'd be a PG show for sure. But I think that show's funny, and that's what it would be like.
And if not, Cedar Grove will ruin Adam. So
we're taking him down.
Okay, so this one I pulled. I didn't look for any information on the production at all, but it was a very interesting title. You might not even remember it. Teenage Mountain Lion.
Teenage Mountain Lion. You kidding me? Absolutely, I remember Teenage Mountain Lion. My friend Ali Gondor, who's on my improv team at UCB called Bangarang, is part of that group. They're not called Teenage Mountain Lion, and now their name of their group is escaping me. The Waitlist. I was a principal in that show, and we don't have any mountain lions. We'd have to change it to. I don't think we have any mountain lions. Certainly no teenage mountain lions. If it was taking place in Cedar Grove, that would definitely have to be a deer, a white-tailed deer. He turns into a white-tailed deer, and then we'd hunt him. And but I will say about that show, I remember when I was doing that. It's a short-lived little like really it's an internet show, but Hulu at the time, Hulu was new, and Hulu was going to be airing it. And I remember them telling me that. And I remember a couple things. One, I thought they were so nice and funny, and they were younger than me. They still are younger than me. And but they were just like just out of college. And so I just remember thinking, like, because I was like in my early 30s, I was like, these young guys are getting after it. This is unbelievable. I'm so excited about their like tenacity and creativity, and probably a little jealous too. But they would ask me to be a part of things, and I was so grateful to be a part of it. And I would always be like, I'm so thankful these funny people are asking me to be a part of this. I really love them. Not knowing, and Ali and I had done a little bit of improv together, and that's how like we all kind of met. But then we didn't know we'd be doing a lot of improv later on. But that was early days of Hulu, and they would air it. And at the time, I was like, "This is it. You guys are Hulu's this new thing. You're going to be stars and millionaires." And I thought, because you're going to be a TV show on this new streaming platform. We didn't really understand what streaming was at that point. I don't think.
Yeah.
At least I didn't. It didn't That isn't what happened. But they're all doing great. But I remember at the time Hulu was brand new, and they were getting in on it at the ground floor. I'm like, you guys are at the ground floor of this new thing, and it was so exciting to me.
And now it's very interesting to hear about that time in the industry versus this time, where a lot of streaming services are falling off, and like it's still not a settled ground at all.
It's still a little bit Wild West, but certainly in back then, which was like 2010, 2011, it was truly like it really was Wild West, and who knew what would happen where, but it was crazy. Yeah.
Okay, one last one here, and bear with me, audience. I'm going to be saying a lot of letters. NTSF, SD, SVU. I believe it's an Adult Swim show, right?
It's an Adult Swim show. It's a crazy show. But it's super funny. Paul Scheer's like a big part of that, obviously. I'm going to tell a little bit of story about that one too. If that show took place in, I don't know, the city would burn, the town would burn down because it'd be too much mayhem. It'd be too insane. There would never be that many crimes. There would never be that many crazy things going on in that town. They'd have to be solving way more crimes of like people putting firecrackers in mailboxes and stuff like that. Like that would be as insane as it would get, at least when I grew up. This is a story I'm going to tell. Now I can't think of his name. It escapes me every single time. He had a bit of a comeback. You might know this guy. You'll if I explain the name. He had a comeback. He was in Jackie Brown. He was like the bail bondsman, and he was also in like Olympus Has Fallen, or he was in one of those movies. He died a few years ago.
Yeah, Robert something.
Robert Forster.
Robert Forster. He was in Breaking Bad too. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. So Robert Forster, he's on this episode. All right, and I don't do well in this episode. I did not have my lines down very well. I thought I did, but there's a difference for me, not everyone, but for me. The one thing you have to do as an actor, you got to have your lines down, like the basic thing. You should also understand the story and stuff like that, but like you got to know what these stinking words are. And so I'd practice it at home, and it was like a big chunk for me, big chunk of dialogue. But I practiced it at home, but I didn't practice it with anyone. So I was just saying it to myself, or I was just like saying it to myself. So I never heard another human say it. I never heard another human say their lines, or me have to respond to them saying their lines, and that threw me off big time. I was a newer actor at that point. I forget what year that was. I should have known my lines better than that. But I just didn't know how to do it well. But I was cheap talent at that point. And I had probably had some kind of like, hey, this guy might be okay, because I was also like UCB, and they knew me through UCB. Which is where I did a lot of improv, and so did they. So I didn't do great, and I was pretty down on myself. I think my scene was with Brett Gelman. He's so funny, and he was like destroying it, of course. And we had to like do it over and over again. I'm just like battling, and I am sweating bullets, and I'm embarrassed because like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't deserve to be here or whatever. So that happens. That's happening. It's not going great. But they're all, June, Diane, Raphael, and Paul Scheer are still so kind to me. They're being so nice about it. It's unbelievable. They're so nice. It's really, truly, they were godsends. Anyways, I'm sitting next. I got time between whatever we're doing, right? And Robert Forster's in the episode, and he also has time. So we're just like sitting in this. I forget what lot we're on, but it's like let's say Universal or Paramount or somewhere, and so it's like a fake city lot. And I think it's further out of town than that. But we're like sitting on a park bench on this fake street in the middle of nowhere. And Robert, I'm feeling down or whatever, so I'm just like looking to have someone take get me to think about anything else. Anyways, so I asked Robert, I'm like, hey, because I knew him for Jackie Brown and stuff. I'm like, hey, what was it like when you first started? Because I was also starting. I was like, what was it like in the beginning? Like, do you remember what your first job was and where you were, where you're coming from? And so he told me like where he came from and what his first gigs were like when he first got to LA and what he was doing. I wish I could remember these details now. But I was like mesmerized. He was just like so kind and just like letting me sit and listen. And he knew I was probably struggling a little bit. And he was like offering words of encouragement. He's like very nice about it. But he just like told me about his journey. And he's like, I didn't work for years. You know, like Jackie Brown really like was the thing that like picked him back up. But he was like talking about the downward part of it, which is like so interesting to me. And he's telling me those parts of it, and I was just enthralled by him, and he was so kind. And then he's like, "Hey, I have a little gift for you. I have a little gift for you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so nice. You don't have to do that." And he's like, "It's in my trailer. There's a duffel bag in my trailer, and there's going to be a bunch of little boxes in there." And in my mind, I'm like, "I'm not going to I'm not going inside your trailer. I'm not going in there. What are you kidding me? It's insane." He's like, "No, it's fine. Go, go, go." I was like, I don't want to do that. But he's like, no, do that. Remember. And he like asked me a couple of times, like, "Okay, I'll go." And so after I was done, mercifully done with my day, I went, and in my trailer there was like a little letter from like June and Paul, and they're like, "So glad to have you, so thankful to have you here," and they were so nice. But I went into Robert Forrester's trailer by myself, and I felt insane. But he had a duffel bag in there, and I'm like rooting through his stuff. I'm like, if anyone comes in here, I don't know what to tell them. But he had a bag with like a bunch of little boxes in it, and I grabbed one, I took it, and it was this like stainless steel letter opener, and
wow.
he had a bunch of them. And I've talked to other people who also have these from him, and he would give them out. He would just give them out to people on set. He's like, "I give them out to everyone on set," or like maybe all the cast. And because I was part of the cast that day, I got this silver letter opener, or a stainless steel, or whatever you want to call this thing, aluminum.
Wow.
And I think about him all the time when I got this, and being in his trailer by myself.
Do you think he just bought like gross of letter openers, or what?
100%. Absolutely, because there's no engraving or anything on it. They're just plain.
Yeah.
But I bet we all have them.
Wow.
Yeah.
A Robert Forrester letter opener, exclusive here on Where I'm From. And Dave, thanks to that exclusive, I'd like to say you've won the game. I mean, it was stiff competition.
Yes.
But you win. All right.
Did I beat
ahead.
Tobolowsky? Did I beat Tobolowsky?
You did beat Tobolowsky. Absolutely. Because he's not here to defend his crown, so you absolutely beat Tobolowsky.
And he never will be.
And Dave, you're going to love your prize. Your prize is an ad read that we're going to cut to right now, and then we'll be back to talk more with Dave about all sorts of stuff.
What a pot of gold.
Now, if I can find it here, one sec. Where's the ad read? See, this is those flubs and dubs part I was talking about. Give me 1 second.
Hey, that's what makes the show.
It does, absolutely. Now, if I could only find it. I cannot find the ad read. Hold on, guys.
That ad read, I want to hear it.
I know it's such a good ad read too. Like I know the guy who did it. He's a really good guy. Where is it? Sorry, this is a whole new system I'm working with right now, so bear with me.
Is it for Exxon? Is that the ad read for? Is it for Exxon?
It is not for Exxon. They pulled their stuff when they pulled out of Twitter.
Oh,
so
I'm so sorry.
unfortunately. Okay, well, you know what? We're gonna do it live. We'll do it live. Here we go, because I can't find the video. All right, so cut to me. All right. This episode of Where I'm From is brought to you by Stream Studio. That's stream.studio. They are a great service that allows you to do live streams to multiple platforms like Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn if you want to for some reason, Facebook. And it's really easy. It's a really easy web page you can go to where you can set up the show very easily, a lot more easier than I've set it up here. And what else does it come with? It comes with a bunch of stuff. Honestly, it's a great ad read. Go back to one of my previous shows, watch the ad read from there, and then go to billmeeks.com/whereimfrom and sign up for Stream Studio. Thanks. Dave's laughing at me. And thank you, Stream Studio, so much for sponsoring Where I'm From. We made it, Dave. We made it. Jesus.
Sure did. You nailed it. That was a perfect ad read. They're thrilled. I'm thrilled. Can't wait to go back to watch old episodes so we can get more information about that product.
That is called me trying to remember a script I wrote and recorded about a month ago.
Hey, you did way better. I'll tell you right now. That was way better than my NTSF SVU read. So I applaud you, my friend. You did great.
And I think it's really telling that I was able to do that using Stream Studio. So there you go. All right. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, Dave, let's talk some Milwaukee. All right.
Yeah. Milwaukee's the best.
So what were the college years like for in Milwaukee for Dave?
College years were 3 years. I was a 5-year. I had that super senior status. I loved it. I'll be honest. A bunch of my friends from high school also transferred, were either at Milwaukee or transferred to Milwaukee the same year I did. So my college friends were, a lot of them, most of them, same as my high school friends. The people I hung out with some people definitely that were not from where I'm from, but I hung out with a lot of people that were from my school in Cedar Grove, or they were in the same conference that Cedar Grove played sports in. So did I get to a bigger city? Absolutely. Did I hang out with the same small town people? Absolutely. And I loved it. It was great.
I'll say my college was kind of similar in that I went to college. I ended up going to college when I left UCLA, probably 40 minutes from my high school. So there was a lot of crossover. Did you notice that, relationships changed between high school and college? Because a lot of the people who were like my mortal enemies in high school, when we got to college, they were cool. I'd go to their dorm room, we'd smoke weed together, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I don't know if I had any like real mortal enemies in high school. I think I was somewhat affable, but I definitely got closer with some of them than I was. People who were just like more acquaintances got closer. Although really the people that I gravitated toward in college were honestly the same people that I gravitated toward in high school. So we were all kind of really close. Truly, I have I'm in such a good position where I have lifelong friends that were with me in high school and college and afterwards. So I got to like have shared experiences with a lot of close people that we can always talk about and go back on. So whenever I go home, I get to see people that I know and have loved for so long and have lots of experiences with. I loved college. I loved Milwaukee and Oshkosh.
Whatchamacallit? What was I going to say? Yeah, well, Milwaukee is known for beer and breweries and stuff. I was wondering, do you have any anecdotes or stories about the beer or breweries in Milwaukee? I almost said Los Angeles.
Yeah, we've got a lot more here too, but certainly feels more so back then. I'll tell a couple things about Milwaukee beer, Milwaukee breweries, some things that maybe you could do and I think that are fun. One, if you're ever in Milwaukee, do the Miller tour. Do the Miller tour. It's a macro brewery, obviously, but it's a good one. And they have these like catacombs that you get to go through a little bit of that are super old that they used to use more. Now they're just for like tour purposes or whatnot. But they used to like do it for like storing whatever they're storing down there because it's cold down there. So definitely do the Miller tour. I think is super fun. Another thing I think is fun is I did this. I don't know if they still do it. I'm hoping they still do it. But I did this years ago, around let's say around Halloween, that area, fall. Let's say a group of people would do this beer baron cemetery tour. So you would meet at this bar that has like the oldest operating bowling alley in Wisconsin, if not the U.S. It's super old. And it's got like 2 lanes. It's like still at the hand. You have to put the pins up by hand or whatever. But you'd start there. You'd have like a beer or whatever. And then they'd take you to this big cemetery. And this big cemetery is where a lot of the beer barons are buried. Miller is not. But like Schlitz is there, which is a big one. Blatz is there, which is a big one, at least in Wisconsin, Milwaukee it is. I think Grandpa Groff, whoever started that family's buried there. And there's a few other like notable beer barons is what they call them. Yeah. And you could do a tour and they talk about the history of beer in Wisconsin, beer in Milwaukee. And at one point, you go past, I think it's Schlitz, and it's like a big burial tomb or whatever, because like his whole family's in there or whatever.
Yeah.
And
are
then
they buried in beer barrels?
Big beer barrels. They threw them and then they tossed them down Niagara Falls, and then they buried them in Milwaukee. It was really fun.
The
And,
sludge that's
but-
left.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, disgusting. But they're in this tour. You get to like a guy will come out dressed as like Joseph Schlitz, and he'll come from behind the thing, and he'll like be him, and he'll give you a little like story about my family started Schlitz Brewery, and so you get to like listen to this thing, and it's so fun, and it's really great. It's totally worth it, and there's also just like a bunch of old breweries. These aren't like great stories, I realize, but like if you're ever in Milwaukee, go do these things. Go to Von Trier. It's this old German bar. There's so many old bars in Milwaukee. There's so many bars. There's so many bars in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin. It's so concentrated. Go to a bunch of these old historic bars that I think are gorgeous. And they're super fun and worth going to. But definitely do some of these brewery tours. Go to Lakefront. It's a great one. Go to Sprecher. Sprecher is an awesome beer tour, and you get to drink at all these. And one of them, you could do a thing where you get on a boat, and it goes down the Milwaukee River, and it stops at various breweries: Rock Bottom Brewery, Lakefront Brewery, and like two others. And you just get on the boat, and you go down the river, and then you stop at another brewery. You go through the tour. You drink more beer if that's your thing, and it's really fun. It's great.
It's like a party bus, but a boat.
It 100% is. It is like a party bus, but a boat. Absolutely.
Nice. All right. Well, we've talked drinking. We've talked me messing up the ad read. We've talked a few things. Thank you very much, sir. But let's go ahead and get into one of your big concentrations, improv. You got your start in Milwaukee, right, at Comedy Sports. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you kind of fell into improv and your experience there? Great.
So the way that goes is I credit my sister Suzanne for that. So I'm in college, and I still like funny stuff, and I'm a theater major, but I wasn't a theater major till my 5th year of college. So I'm truly like in name only. At the time, like I didn't. LA acting was an actual possibility for me. That wasn't even on my radar. Mm-hmm. But I knew I just need a job. I need a degree of something so I can get an office job. And I just need a degree of anything. I don't care what it is. It just needs some degree. And I was a communications major. But going in my 5th year, I'm like, I don't really care about communications that much. But I'm like, I like theater. I just need a degree. So I went to my advisor, and he's like, you have a lot of credits. Let's get you out of here. So I switched my major to theater, but I didn't like do any plays. I did one community theater play in Random Lake for my friend Ryan Klug, who was putting on Josephine the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and I was Ruben. But I was not a great singer, but I could do comedy or whatever. But so I was just I wasn't doing anything theater related. I was just like going to school. But my sister and I used to watch Whose Line Is It Anyway, that short form improv show it would be on Comedy Central at the time. All the time. It was a British version at that time. Mm-hmm. And Colin Mockery and Ryan Stiles, Greg Proops and all those guys. And we would watch it all the time, and I watched it all the time. And Comedy Sports, when my senior year, we had a lock-in after the junior prom. My senior year, there's a lock-in after the prom. We'd all go to this place, and they'd lock you in for the night. The sports court in Kohler, Wisconsin, you could play like a bunch of sports. They had like fake gambling and entertainment and stuff like that, or just so you wouldn't like go out and party all night. Gave kids a place to go, and then probably keep people from having sex and stuff like that. So Comedy Sports came to this lock-in. It's the first time I'd seen Comedy Sports in person. It's a lot like Whose Line Is It Anyway? And I got to like be one of the volunteers, and I wasn't funny, but they really helped me out. But that's the only time I saw it. So I was like, okay, I saw them. And then so years later, I'm in college, I'm in the 5th year, and my sister's like, hey, did you know Comedy Sports is out here? They do classes? I was like, they do classes? No, I did not know that. She's like, they do. You should like do that. So I looked into it. I was like, I'll take a class. So I took a class because she noticed it. I never probably would have done it otherwise. And I liked it. And about a year and a half into it, I just graduated college. I'm at my first job at Northwestern Mutual. And I started they asked me to start doing professional shows. So I'm 22, 23 at this point. I'm going to say 23. And I'm in Milwaukee, and I'm doing Comedy Sports. Comedy Sports started in like 84. It started in Milwaukee. Dick Chudnow, the owner, took ideas from Theater Sports, which is up in Canada, and turned it into a more competitive format. 2 teams and a referee, but it's all improv and jokes and games, stuff like that. And then it's since like spread throughout the U.S. There's one there's not. I don't know if there's one in L.A. anymore, but there was, and I did it. But they were all over the place. Ireland, the U.K., Chicago, North Carolina, all these places, right? Whatever. But I started doing shows, and that was my beginning of doing improv. Was back in started classes in '99, and by 2001. Valentine's Day is, I say, my first professional show. Valentine's Day of 2001 is when I did my first professional show, and then I started doing it on my nights and weekends all the time, as much as I could possibly do it. I put my availability in every week, and I would do it as much as I could. I had a day job, but on my nights and weekends, they're eaten up by comedy sports.
I just out of curiosity, and I don't think you'll be putting anyone out here because it's been years ago now. How much would a professional improviser in Milwaukee make for a show?
More than other cities.
More than other cities?
I'll
Really?
tell you what, I made more doing improv in Milwaukee than I've ever made in LA. In Milwaukee, and I'm sure it's changed now, but there, for like an in-house show, $25, $30 a show, something like that. Definitely worth my while. Definitely getting paychecks. And then we do remote shows for colleges or businesses, bar mitzvahs, Boy Scout troops, everything.
That's where the real money is.
That's where the real money is. And that would be like anywhere between like $80 to $120 a show. And for a part-time job, making people laugh, it was awesome. There were guys, we did so many shows. I did a day job, so I didn't do all these shows. But we did so many shows, corporate shows, that some people were making a living off it. Is it a great living? No. But they were able to like pay the rent. One guy had a house. It was also cheaper back then. Everything was cheaper. But you could do it. They had a handful of guys that were just making it, work, at least getting by. But it was certainly a great part-time job. Compared to out here, where now it's different because we just started paying performers a little bit. But for years, unless I did a random corporate show, which were far and few between, one a year, maybe when I did Comedy Sports and UCB, maybe. There are other people doing more. I wasn't. But no in-house shows paid anything. And in fact, I was shelling out cash for coaches and for classes. I was losing money. It was like a civ parking. Like I was bleeding money. But there, I was making money. So way more than anywhere else I'd ever been, and way more than most cities anywhere.
That's good to know. You aspiring improvisers out there, go to Milwaukee.
It's not a great living, but it's a great part-time job, and it was. I loved it with everything I had.
Nice. Well, speaking of improv, we're going to do another game before we get into talking about your transition to Los Angeles. This is a game I came up with just for you, and I figured since we met moving improv, we could knock out a couple quick blackout scenes with this game. So I'll be playing Bernie Love, a radio DJ who gives advice kind of like Frasier. And I'll cue you up with a caller based on somebody you might have known in Milwaukee, along with a problem prompt, sort of a suggestion. Then I'll bring you on the line, and you give Bernie the details, and I'll give you some advice. Make sense?
I love it. Makes sense.
Excellent. Okay, we'll see how this goes. Welcome to Love at Night with Bernie Love, where we give you advice about any of the problems you have in your life. First up, we have Michael, a construction worker from Milwaukee, who says he has a problem with Pabst Blue Ribbon. Michael, you're on the line with Bernie Love.
Hey, Bernie, thanks for having me. Real happy to be here. Boy, let me tell you what. I got some big issues here with Pabst Blue Ribbon, all right? And I'm wondering if you can help me out in any way. Yeah. If I'm being honest, I don't think it's great. I know we love it. I know it's a Blue Ribbon beer, and I know that people really link it to Milwaukee and think it's amazing, but I think it's swill, and I feel like I'm on the outs with my peer group, and they all want to drink that. Me, I'm a Miller Genuine Draft guy. I know that's not a popular choice, but I like that cold filtered.
So am I, Michael.
There we go, MGD Heavy, and that's my beer of choice. And I'm wondering, how can I break it to them in a way that I'm not going to lose them as friends?
Well, some people might say that if you share this with your friends and they reject you as a friend, then they're not your real friends anyway. I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to say is that sometimes to maintain a friendship, you need to trick your friends. So what I would do is I would take a syringe, drain out your can of Miller High Life and then your Pabst Blue Ribbon, and then shoot it into your Miller High Life. And then that way you can open the can. It pops open just like a regular can. Your friends won't know the difference. You won't have any awkward situations, and you'll be able to continue these friendships well into your old age. Make sense, Michael?
Bernie, makes perfect sense. And I'll tell you what, you've got a friend for life in me no matter what beer you drink. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. We'll talk to you later. And I appreciate you being my friend. I consider all of my callers friends, especially when they're talking beer. All right, next up we have Kevin here, who is a bar owner who seems to have a problem with the Green Bay Packers. Kevin, you're on the line. What's your problem?
Yeah, it's Kevin here. Thanks for taking my call. I'm going to have to get off the line here pretty quickly because we're a third shift bar, and it's early, but we have people here working after third shift, and they want to get drunk before they go to bed and have to do it all over again.
Understandable.
And I'm having some trouble with the Green Bay Packers. They've been struggling this season. I mean, they had a nice win this past Sunday over the Cowboys, and that's great. We can't stand the Cowboys, but
the Cowboys.
Sorry,
I said that on air.
Bernie, this is your show, not mine. You can say whatever you want, however you want to say it.
I'll pay the FCC fine. It's okay.
Oh, you got money to burn, my friend. Look, I'm just saying here that when the Packers don't do well, people don't drink as much. Now, you think they drink more to drown their sorrows, and sometimes that's the case, but when people are in a festive mood, they tend to drink more, and people are not drinking nearly as much here. So I guess I do have a problem with the Packers, but I'm also curious to know how can I get people to plunk down some more of their hard-earned cash from over at Harley-Davidson to buy some more beer, even though the Packers are struggling.
Well, I think a good way to do it would be you take a cardboard sign and you write out on it, every beer you buy supports the Packers at training camp. And then that way people see, I'll buy the beer, and the Packers will get a little extra training before next Sunday's game. It doesn't have to be true, mind. You just have to tell them this, and by next Sunday, and it'll be a constant cycle. The Packers keep losing. Oh, they need more training. Buy more beer. I think it'll do well for you. I don't see any legal repercussions for you at all, Kevin.
Yeah, that feels foolproof. I mean, buy beer and they get more training is what you're saying. They somehow get more training as a result of this. That's what the idea is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The beer funds their additional training. Yeah, exactly. It's a public account that the beer money goes into, and then the Packers take it out.
Yes, we are a publicly owned team. The Packers are publicly owned, so this feeds into that idea. I completely understand that. Now, do these millionaires need more money from us? I'm not sure that they do, but I do like the idea that now we have even more ownership of a team that we already own. It gives us even more connection to this team that we love so much. Bernie, honestly, this is a great idea, and I love it. I'm going to start pushing this on our patrons at the bar. And I think it's going to go over like gangbusters. Bernie, thanks once again. I love your show. It's always the best
advice.
Thank you,
Kevin.
And I'll tell you what, you've got a voice like an angel.
Well, a lot of people tell me I have a voice like an ashtray, but I'll take it. Thank you very much, Kevin. All right, and last up here, we have Patrick, who's a professional bowler who seems to have some sort of problem with Arthur Fonzarelli, the character Fonzie from Happy Days. Patrick, you're on the line.
Oh, yeah. Hey, thanks for having me there, Bernie. Much appreciated. I got a big problem with the old Fonz, okay?
I got to hear about this.
Yeah, you do. Listen up here. People, they're not flocking to the bowling alley like they used to, okay? I'm a good bowler. Heck, I just bowled a 300 last month, and I'm telling you what, it ain't my first one. But the people, they don't want to come to the bowling alley to watch me play, to watch me roll, okay? Instead, what they're doing is they're doing one of two things. They're either watching old reruns of Happy Days, which took place in Milwaukee, or at least seem to have, or they're heading down to the Milwaukee River, and they're taking pictures with the bronze Fonz. In Milwaukee, we got something called the bronze Fonz. It's a short statue, about as tall as actual Arthur Fonzarelli was, but he's cast out of bronze, and he's a
life
statue
size.
giving the old thumbs up. Life size, yeah. You'd think it'd be a little bit bigger, a little bit more, grand, but it's not. but it's still cool to see. And you get to take your picture put your arm around him. He's got his leather jacket on. He's got his blue jeans on. He's giving the thumbs up. He's got the slick back hair. He looks great. And I'll tell you what, the bowling alleys, they're empty, Bernie. They're empty. And I'm hoping maybe you can give me some reason to get them back. This is a similar problem to the bar issue that I'm talking about earlier, I realize. But there's no one at the bowling alley now. They're all down at the Bronze Fawns down by the river.
Well, Patrick, I think you're in luck here because I've heard through the grapevine, through my connections out there in crazy town Los Angeles, that Henry Winkler is about to wrap up shooting on Barry, and he's going to be free. So I say what you do, you reach out to Henry's people, you bring him to the bowling alley, and you put him up behind the bar where he can serve all the patrons. I mean, who wants to go see a statue of Henry Winkler 30 years ago when you can go drink with Henry Winkler right now?
Bernie, this is unbelievable. I got to say, I love this idea, and I'm going to get Henry Winkler over to the bowling alley, Maple Lanes, and we're going to have a great time. And then we're going to switch him over to Landmark Lanes, where they have 3 bars in the basement. It's been there since I've been in college. You got to go check it out. It's right by Ventura on North Avenue. If you're ever in Milwaukee, go to Landmark Lanes. Is it a great-looking place? No. But it's also right next to the Oriental Theater, which is a classic-looking movie theater. You got to go check that out if you're ever in Milwaukee. Go see a movie there. It is ornate and beautiful, and Henry Winkler is going to love seeing a matinee there. Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, Patrick. And really interesting that you gave some information about the town we both live in right there at the end of the call. It's almost like you were on a podcast about that town. Anyway, that does it for Love. That does it for Love at Night with Bernie Love. I want you to call in next week with all of your problems. Centered in Milwaukee, please. Thank you very much. This is Bernie Love. That actually worked out. I love that. That worked.
Yeah, that did work out.
Actually, I have another improviser on Friday, so I'm definitely going to use that game with them. So
you gotta.
Actually, you might know them. I'll tell you off air.
Okay, yeah, you don't want to give it too much away here.
Yeah, you can't tease it in case she cancels on me. Okay, so let's wrap up by talking a little bit about your transition to Los Angeles. As we've discussed already, I've been out here a couple times myself. It's a big capital B decision that can have big repercussions and completely reverse in a moment's notice. Why did you decide to move here? And tell me a little bit about like the moving story, the transition.
Okay, so when I was doing I lived in Milwaukee for about 12 years. I was doing improv for about 8 of those years. I also did a little bit of improv at IO, Improv Olympic in Chicago. Never lived there, but just would drive down there with my buddy Mike Kauth, and we would take classes, and then we got onto a team. But that was a struggle. The drive was long. I didn't know what I was doing. That was long from improv. I was dying. I wasn't funny to me, so I stopped doing it for a while and just kept doing comedy sports because it was closer and they paid me and I felt good. So then in 2009, at the time I was married, and she and I decided to try something different and wanted to move out somewhere warm near the ocean. We talked about Hawaii before we were going to move back to Wisconsin and start that life. But I wanted to know some people. I was already in my early 30s at this point, and I didn't know anyone in Hawaii. I knew some people in LA. And I wanted there to be some kind of entertainment. Didn't have to be the entertainment capital of the world or whatever, but I wanted there to be something where I could do some kind of comedy or whatever. So LA seemed warm, seemed tropical to me, and had palm trees from what I knew. I realize now it's not Hawaii at all, but certainly compared to for someone in southeastern Wisconsin, it feels a whole heck of a lot closer to Hawaii than let's say Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And so we moved out. And I was also unhappy. I was unhappy with what I was doing in Milwaukee. I didn't like my day job. I didn't like my life overall. I felt like I was just kind of wasting my life or whatever. That's too extreme. It wasn't that dire. But I wasn't having my day job. But I was doing improv and stuff like that, and I had friends and family and all that stuff that I loved, obviously.
Yeah.
But want to try something different. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what headshots were. I didn't know what auditions were. I didn't know that I would do any of that. I just knew that we're going to move to LA and see what that was like and maybe take some classes. My friend Eric Price, who's so funny and lives out here, used to do comedy sports, and he was like the best of the best. And And he was living in LA, and I said, I'm gonna move out. We're moving out. Where should I take classes? I didn't know, and I'd already done comedy sports, and I did Improv Olympic, which was also out here at the time. And I'm like, I've already done those, so I don't need to do that right away. And he's like, well, take classes at UCB. Like, it's a hot place and people like it. So I was like, all right, I'll take classes there. So I moved out here. And in the first 2 weeks, I started my 101 class at UCB. And also ended up doing comedy sports out here as well, and Improv Olympic a lot, both those places quite a bit, especially Improv Olympic. But then started taking classes in 2009 at UCB, and by the end of 2009, I got onto an improv team because they have like auditions and whatnot, and then also got onto a sketch team at UCB and started doing it. I had the good fortune that I could kind of hit the ground running. My ex had a good job, and my company that I was working at in Wisconsin went under right before I moved out. So I got to collect unemployment from Wisconsin for like a year and a half. So I could really hit the ground running
and kind of really focus in on it.
People.
Yeah,
I'd focus in on it. So like when people sometimes would be like, "Hey, things worked out for you relatively quickly," and they did, but it's because I had these advantages that others didn't have. I had a ton of improv experience, a ton of it, and so I already knew a bit. Even though I learned a ton, it was it was a huge learning curve still when I got out here. But I got to be in this small pond versus people who were coming out here in the biggest pond, at the best comedy theaters, and try to make it. It's hard, really hard. And I didn't have to have a day job to like keep me going right away. I got to like just really go after it, and I did, and it worked out. Enough balls bounced my way. I liked LA immediately, but enough balls bounced my way to keep me interested. And I got to start doing improv at UCB, and I was doing it at IO and at Comedy Sports, and then all randomly all over town. I was doing comedy. I was doing improv. Here's the thing I tell people. I'm kind of all over the map here. When I did Comedy Sports in Milwaukee, I did it as much as I could. I saw a ton of shows. I did as much as I could. When I took classes and did shows at Improv Olympic, I would drive down with my friend Mike. We'd take classes, and then we'd drive home. We'd do a show. We'd see the group before us or after us, drive home, because I had a day job to get to. I never lived there, never got immersed in it. As a result, I didn't understand what the heck we were doing as long-form improv. I'd never done long-form improv. It was so different to me, and I never got good at it there because I wasn't there doing it. So when I got out here, I said, I'm going to do it as much as I can, as hard as I can. So I took as many classes as I could take. I saw as many shows as I could see. I did as many shows as I could see all the time. I did that for years, and it was a huge help in like it's like the same thing as everything else. I realize there's a certain talent or whatever that improv has, or acting or whatever. Yeah, it's the same as any other job that you want anywhere in the world. You got to put the time in. You have to have some talent, but you got to put the time in. You got to be a person that people don't despise or get annoyed at immediately. You have to have the right attitude. You got to have the ability, and you got to have the attendance. You got to be showing up. It's like the three. I tell people it's the 3 A's: attendance, ability, and attitude. You got to have those three things, or at least two of those three things, really well to compensate for the third. But ideally, you have three of them, and really two of them are fully in your control. The ability, somewhat in your control, but that will increase with the attendance and the attitude. So that's what I did a ton of when I got out here.
I will say, as someone who's met you through improv and has improvised with you and stuff, that is very apparent. Like, we had a lot of great people in our class, but I think immediately a lot of people in our class were just like, Dave's a good guy. And it was just like, you have this air about you. And I think you basically reverse engineered it for our audience and for me. So I'll take that to heart too, for sure.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. And with that, like a class like that, like, excuse me, for those of you who are like looking into getting into improv or whatever, or you're wondering about this stuff or comedy or acting or whatever it is, I've told people this. I've told our classmates this. I was doing improv for 20 years before I did that Groundlings class with you. I did it a lot. Some of you, that was like your first class or your first place, like your first place that you chose to go. For some of you, not you, because you were doing a little bit in Orlando. But for some of these people, it's like they picked arguably one of the greatest comedy schools in the world, in one of the most competitive, in the biggest, like one of the biggest entertainment cities in the world, if not the biggest, and like this is where they're starting, and that blows my mind. I would have died. I got to really cut my teeth in a way more supportive, smaller environment, where people are just doing it for fun. There was no end game here versus Groundlings, which is like, got to go through these classes, got to get on it, got to pass to get to the next level, got to get in the Sunday company, got to get a Groundling so I can get on SNL or get on TV or get an agent or get a manager. Like none of that was a concern or a pressure where I started or where you started. So the fact that anyone is doing it and not falling apart completely, it's a big win for those people. I mean,
absolutely. Would you say that UCB has the same vibe where it's like, okay, it's go time. You got everyone's on, everyone's trying to move ahead, or is it a bit more relaxed or chummy?
Different. Yeah, yes and no. Same and different. Same in that it is competitive. If you want to get on these teams, there's limited spots. I know it's like it should be the supportive thing, and it is. But it's also like every other stinking job in the world. It's like every other thing where like I want to be a part of this. Well, there's probably a limited number of seats. I want to work at that. I want to work at that Valvoline oil change thing. Well, they don't have 1,000 employees. They probably have a limited number. So, I mean, they have 1,000 worldwide or whatever. But like at this one, it's limited. So I've got to be good to be able to be accepted there, right? To get a job there, to get an interview there. Same thing at UCB. Same thing at Groundlings. It's no different. And some of them are going to get it, and some of them aren't. The difference is that UCB, you can kind of like take classes. Maybe this is different now. I'm not sure, but you can kind of take classes as long as you want. Versus Groundlings, at some point you get booted out. We don't think you're good enough. You're out of here. Both of those hurt in different ways. You can feel like you're getting strung along at UCB or any of these other schools. This isn't just UCB dependent or specific. But you could feel like they're just stringing me along. They're just taking my money. Okay, maybe. Maybe that's the case, and you got to like make that decision. Like, how am I going to feel about this? What am I going to do? And again, it's not a perfect system. I'm not trying to defend UCB or these or the individual. Like, it's not a perfect system because these are human beings running this. Versus Groundlings, you can also be hurt by like they kicked me out. They don't realize my potential. Like, and now I can't take classes anymore because I didn't pass this class twice for whatever reason, and now I'm out. Right? Both of those things can hurt, or both those things can be good because you could also look at it as, all right, they let me know I'm done, and now I can move on from this. And that also
like mentally move on. Yeah.
Mentally move on. UCB has a way larger community because, well, now it's different because now we're back down to one stage. But for a while, we had two stages. We had a school, and most of the indie improv scene in Los Angeles is being run by UCB-related people. Versus Groundlings, that's just not the same. They're trying to change that a little bit. And UCB at the time, now it's different in the post-pandemic world, but UCB had really 3 stages running 7 nights a week versus Groundlings, 1 stage running 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 nights a week, 4 nights a week, something along those lines, right? And only 30 Groundlings at a time. There's only 30 Groundlings at max.
Yeah.
So your odds of making it are so slim, which is so hard and can be so heartbreaking for so many people, which I get, and I can definitely sympathize with them when people don't make it into the Sunday company, get outed from the Sunday company quickly, ousted, or don't get into UCB. But it's hard because it's supposed to be it's a supportive, learning, loving environment. But it's also like every other job, every other thing in the world, every other peer group, every other friend group, every other whatever group, where it's like it's limited and not everyone's going to be a part of these things, and you got to find your group, and it's hard.
Yeah, that's one of the.
That was a big speech about that stuff. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it was great, and I think that's one of the interesting dynamics of improv, where the only reason the art form works is because we're all supporting each other. But by the same token, on the professional side of the coin, we all also have to kind of be competing with each other.
You want to be noticed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, I'm not going to say people are duplicitous or anything because that would be completely wrong, but there is definitely. Sometimes you'll be working with an improviser and you'll see that kind of that switch flip from where it's all of us mentality to, okay, now it's me time mentality. And
Yep.
That's something you have to be conscious and watch out for in your own performance. In my performance, I try and be aware of that.
Same. And I'm as guilty as anybody about that, where I definitely walk off stage and I'm like, man, I did not make that person look good. I really was like doing my jokes or doing my thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And I got to be better about helping them and making them shine and them look good. And I mean, that's obviously the if the whole world operated like that, obviously the world would be a better place. But certainly improv, it's a team game. But you've seen it. You see shows at Groundlings. You see shows at UCB. We see shows at SAC Theater or the Asylum in Boston or wherever the playground. Like people pop. Different people we gravitate toward. We're looking at other people for whatever reason. They're talented. They look like us. They feel like us. They act like us. They don't act like us. They look different than us. We're like gravitating towards certain performers. We like to see certain performers, and some of that is like. I just, that performer has a certain gravitational pull. They're just like so funny they can't be denied, right? Like it's such an old reference, but like Chris Farley, he wasn't to be denied, right? He's just too funny. We can't help but watch him. At least most people. Same thing with us out here, and we have to like be aware of like what does the show need? Does it need a little bit more? I got to take the bull by the horn. I got to kind of get in there and do whatever my thing or do something that's going to be a laugh, or do I need to be more supportive in this moment? And we all need to be. It's a constant juggle and a constant gauge. Just like it's really just like any relationship. Like, what does the relationship need in this moment?
Yeah, and
usually it's collaboration.
Yeah, and it's like the more you improvise with people too, it does start to really feel like a relationship when you're going up week after week with the same group of 5 or 6 people. You develop not only. You have conflicts that you come back to time and time again, and you also have a shorthand to get through those conflicts in an efficient manner.
Yeah, and then you have roles that you kind of fall into because you're with the same group all the time, so you kind of play these same roles, whether you like it or not, same as your relationships, and you get hurt by certain actions. You feel like you're not being heard. And it's a lot like a relationship because it's a group of people. It's your friends. You work with over time. It's like a work relationship. It's like all those things.
Yeah.
It's a constant. I've got to listen. I've got to pay attention to what's going on here. Listening and communication. If you can believe it, communication and listening are the two biggest things here, like they are everywhere.
What did you say again? I missed that. No, I'm kidding. You communicated that very well. All right. To wrap up here, let's go back to Cedar Grove in Milwaukee. Basically, I want to know, do you make it back to Cedar Grove or Milwaukee, or do your friends from there come to visit you? And how does the old crew react to you popping up on their favorite shows and whatnot?
So I definitely go back. I'll be back for Christmas. It's sometimes I get back to Milwaukee, but I always go to Cedar Grove, but then I try to get some time in Milwaukee, but my family is in Cedar Grove. So that's right. I got to go there because I want to go there. But then I'll also try to set aside a couple of days to get into Milwaukee and see friends. I haven't done comedy sports for a bit, but I want to the next time I'm home. I don't know if I will, and I haven't done it for, like I said, for a while because I just have other things I want to be doing when I'm there. Even though I love improv, but I get to do a lot of it, so I don't have to scratch it itch quite so much. And also, I don't do short form as much anymore, and that's a muscle that I haven't flexed in a bit, so I'm probably a little bit scared. But I do get to go back, and I do get to see my friends, and I love it every time. We try to get together, same with my family, and it's really wonderful, and I'm always grateful for that time. I get to laugh with my friends that are in the comedy world and not comedy world, and they all make me laugh just like all our friends do. And they'll come and visit me, my buddy Nate, who I've been friends with since junior high, and now he lives in Texas. He came out this past Friday. We went to a UCLA game. We hung out. We went to dinner. It was awesome. I loved it. It was so great. So I'm always happy when my friends come out. And then when I'm on TV, if they get to see me, sometimes they'll send me texts or a screenshot, wherever they'll say they saw me, or else they'll put it on their social media or whatever. They're supportive of it, and they're kind about it. Is it like, wow, our world, this is our whole world? No, they got their own life going on. They got their own stuff going on. And luckily, thankfully, not that I'm on a show constantly all the time, but I am on enough to where it's not such an event where they're like, we saw you for the first time in 1,000 years. Finally, you did something. I get to do something here and there, so that's not as the first time I was on something was like a huge a bigger deal, to me, to have family and all that stuff. But now it's still good, but it's like, okay, he's earning a living and he's great. He's not homeless. So that's a plus. We're happy for that.
You're the person they trot out to brag to their friends, but they don't really okay, we got to watch Dave's on tonight on the Connors.
Yeah. They're like, well, okay, Dave's on for what? 40 seconds? I think we can skip this one. We'll move on. But they are happy. They do think it's fun because it's also different than what they do for a living. Just like I'll talk to them about their jobs because it's so different than what I'm doing. They'll talk to me and ask me questions because it's a different lifestyle. Like it's not as, it doesn't have as much structure as what they have to do for their 9-to-5s. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's great.
All right, Dave. Well, thank you for staying with me an extra 40 minutes today.
Toblowski'd it.
You Toblowski, hold on. Let me put you full camera here. 1 second here. This is what you get for tuning in live. You beat a Toblowski. You have gone past Toblowski, I think. So
yes.
Finally,
so sorry to all the listeners for droning on.
People have been wanting someone to surpass Toblowski for years. You finally done it, Dave. Congratulations.
I beat the way bigger name and the person that people gravitate toward way more. They're like, oh, this other guy that we don't have never heard of, he did longer than Toblowski. What did he have to say that was more than Stephen Toblowski? Either way,
ironically, 15 minutes of it was talking about Stephen Toblowski. So.
That's where he got it. Yeah. He didn't mention me once.
No, well, actually, right at the end, he was like, I was on this show. No, I'm kidding. He didn't mention you. Sorry, Dave. But if people not only want to mention you, but come see you perform around here in Los Angeles, where can they check you out at?
They can check me out. I'm in the last Friday of every month over at UCB in my group called Bangarang. I've also got some shows coming up at UCB called Town Meeting. First one is coming up this Sunday, the 20th. I don't know when this is airing. It's live. I guess you're hearing it now. And then I'm randomly throughout the month at random different shows. So they'd have to check the old calendar or follow me on Instagram at DaveTooney, not .com, just at DaveTooney. And then I'll usually promote it in an annoying fashion so they can see that there if they want. That's really the only place I'm really promoting it that much. I guess a little bit on Twitter, but also I barely ever look at Twitter. Also, what is it now?
I've noticed I tagged you in 3 things and you didn't like any of them.
Oh, no, I haven't opened it in a minute. I have not opened it in a minute.
At first, I thought Elon Musk was standing between us, Dave, but I'm glad to hear that it's just you didn't make it onto the app.
I deleted it a while back, and I was like, I'm done with this thing. I got to simplify my life. And then a few months ago, maybe a year ago, I was like, all right, let's put it back on, but don't post anything. Maybe promote some shows, but don't look at it much. So it's like a concerted effort to not look at it or deal with it because, I don't know, a lot of people, I never feel better when I get off of social media than before I got on it. It always makes me feel worse because I'm often comparing.
Yeah,
and that doesn't do anyone any good. So it's crummy. So if you ever see me post those and you find yourself comparing yourself and going, I'm not doing what he's doing, know that I'm feeling the exact same way, and I'm also comparing myself and not feeling good. So we're all doing it. We're all posting our best stuff and making other people feel bad. We're all doing it.
Excellent. Well, definitely make sure you guys follow Dave if you want to be miserable, because he just said he'll make you miserable just like him, which will be perfect.
Absolutely.
And then everyone's on the same level. All
yes.
Right. All right, Dave. Well, we want to thank you very much for joining us today. I want to thank you guys for watching too, both on the live stream over at my Bill Meeks YouTube channel, or if you're watching the DVR over at the Where I'm From podcast YouTube channel. Definitely encourage you to subscribe to both of those if you don't already. I also recommend, if you like the show, go over to Apple Podcast, leave us a review, an honest one. It can be 1 star saying Bill sucks. That's fine. We just need some numbers on there. So go over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave a nice review. And you can find links to the show notes, the live streams, the finished episodes, everything at billmeeks.com/whereimfrom. And I think that about does it for me. Yes, this is one of those flubs and dubs while I pause for a second. Well, that does it for this week. Join us next time when I talk to somebody else about where they're from. See you soon.